Hey everyone, 80s20, back again with another media thread entry. We're almost caught up, I gotta get there. This one is for August, so we're not far behind. I mean, there's only one more I can make since October is not over yet, but that's fine. Okay, let's just get right into it. I don't think this one will be too long. No, I don't think it will be. So actually, yeah, at the start of the month I finished the Epic Battle Fantasy Collection, which I know earlier in the list I talked about the Elephant Collection. I think that's what it's called. Same thing. This is a collection of Flash games from Newgrounds. At least I think they originated at Newgrounds. That's where I played them, and I can't remember when they were released on Steam. It was a while ago though. And it's the Epic Battle Fantasy series by, I think his name is Matt Rozak. Matt Likes Swords. I always loved playing these games back on Newgrounds. They were just so fun, but difficult in their own way. Just from how they're balanced. And playing all of these old ones and they're still kind of ridiculous. I guess, like, I don't think I've ever really learned what the trick is, quote unquote, because there's a lot of games in this collection. I think it's the first two Epic Battle Fantasies, and then a bunch of assorted like mini games. Like there's a shoot 'em up in there, there's a platformer in there. There's even a version of like the Kirby Samurai mini game where you have to hit the button to beat the other opponent before they do, kind of thing. Yeah, and I waited until I finished all of them, which the last one that I finished was Bullet Heaven, the Bullet Hell game. And then once that was done, the collection was officially completed on August 7th. Well, finished. I didn't complete it, I'm not going to. Because, like, I don't know if this is a common occurrence. I would need to play more of his stuff, or at least talk to people who played more of these games and played them more in depth than I did. I don't like the way that the difficulty is handled in these games. Even on normal difficulty, everything feels too challenging, if that makes any sense. Like, enemies have too much HP, they always deal too much damage, and it's like, I guess the idea is you're supposed to use your stats stuff like all the time. Like, you're supposed to poison everything, buff everyone. I don't know, just like, doesn't really come across as fun to me to manage all that constantly and not just be able to like fight on simpler terms. I don't know how to say it. Maybe I'm just bad. Honest, I read about like the harder difficulties in these games and how they give you such a 20% debuff, and then all the enemies get a 20% buff, and it's just like they get harder. It just reminds me, I think it's Epic Battle Fantasy 4? It's 3 or 4 that's available on Steam also, and it's totally free. I got that some years ago and I played through it. I got to the final boss and I just couldn't beat him. And I just gave up because it's just too difficult. I read strategies on what you're supposed to do, and it just didn't help. I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to play it. And it's like, I can't even complete it because I'd have to play through the entire game again on the hardest difficulty, and I don't want to do that. It doesn't sound fun to me. Yeah, I mean, I like completing games, as you can tell from all the games I've completed on this media thread, and I have like, I think maybe 20 platinum trophies. I'm actually not sure. But I have like almost 40 completed games on Steam, and I like doing it. It's a lot of fun for me, especially for games that are legitimately very good. But yeah, for this one, it's like I can already tell in my head. It's like, I guess I could do it with a guide, but I have no interest in it. That said, completion aside, I got sidetracked by that. Fun games all around. Like, they're really funny. They're built on a ton of references to video games and just pop culture and everything. So it's a lot of fun to see the enemies and what they're riffing on and all stuff like that. The versions of Steam have actually been changed so that they're more rip-offy or less, a bit more vague about what they're ripping off, but it's still obvious. It's just less direct. And they're just enjoyable. They're fun games. The Epic Battle Fantasies are really silly. Oh yeah, the mech dress-up game, or actually like the mech builder game, also is in there. It's also cool just seeing all the art. Like, he has a bunch of like scans of his sketchbooks and all this stuff. It's just a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff, stories you can read about what he thought about the games that he made, and if he thought they were good or not, or his problems with them, and this and that. It's really interesting to look at that stuff, like behind the scenes about what he actually thought about his games. Oh, and that reminds me, the clicker one is like the worst one. Like he even entered like, he put an auto clicker mode into it. It's a game where you just have to click cats to kill them and you get points. And he put an auto clicker because clicking causes people pain if you're just all the time, you know? And auto clicker is not great. It really isn't. I don't know how I'm just really bad at it, but it's not doing the job. So I'm like, let me click myself and see if I could do it faster. I did one level like that and immediately was like, I'm not playing this game anymore. Like my finger was not having it. Maybe it's just because I'm older than I was when I first played it. Because I remember I did play the clicker game way back. I played all these way back, I think. But no, man, just oof. That was literally the worst game in the whole bunch. Though I think his least favorite was the cafe one, which I thought was fine. But you know, you are your own worst critic, as they always say. Still, it was a fun thing to go back and revisit some old stuff that I really enjoyed back then. I think it's 3 is the one that's available separately, and then 4 you can buy. I don't remember if 5 is out yet or not. I think it is. Maybe someday I'll check those out because they are cool. Like legit. Maybe I'll just stick to playing them on easy since I'm so terrible at them. Massive skill issue. But you know, what can you do? Moving on to August 10th, where I finished Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. Okay. Like, I bring it up a lot, but end of the Wii U life, end of the Wii U eShop's life, I bought a bunch of stuff. Metroid Prime Trilogy was one of them. And here is the second one, Echoes, finished back in August. I think I started it in, probably in, I was going to say September. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So I probably started in July. Took a bit to get through. Yeah, I'm still trying to get ready for Metroid Prime 4, which I forget if it had like a month. All I know is it's next year, right? Prime 2. So the first thing that comes to mind, I'm reading it here, and like, yeah, that was absolutely true. I found Prime 2, the overworld and the areas, a lot easier to navigate than Prime 1, which is weird. I think generally maybe the areas in Prime 2 are smaller. Like, they're smaller in scope because there's 2 versions of every single area, since you're hopping between dark and light aether. So, because you're doing that, you technically have probably the same amount of space, or maybe even more than the first game. It doesn't feel that way, though, and I actually liked it more. And it sounds weird from someone who's played a ton of Metroid games, that I would prefer the world to be smaller, but I really would. I think I realized what it was through playing Metroid Prime 1 and now 2. And I forget if I mentioned this when I was talking about Metroid Prime 1. There's a distinct difference. If you're playing Super Metroid, or Zero Mission, or Fusion, or Dread, if you gotta go from one spot on the map to another, you know how to get there pretty quick. And it is pretty fast, even without using like the lifts and trams and Dread. I mean, you gotta use them in some cases, but even with that, it's still pretty easy to get to where you want to go. In all the 2D Metroids, especially in Super Metroid, people fly. When you really know how to move in that game, they get to where they want to go immediately. The Prime games don't have that. Maybe there's speedrunners. There are speedrunners, not maybe, there are, who can do it really well, or just people who are really good at these games who play them many times. Not me. On my first run for both of these games, I've noticed that, especially at the end of the game in Prime 1 with the artifact hunt, and then Prime 2 looking for the dumb Sky Temple keys, it's really, really annoying to have to retrace your steps all over the world to find these stupid keys. I was not a fan of the backtracking at the finale of either of these games. And of course, one issue with that is simply how much longer it takes to get to where you want to go. And I think one thing that was unclear about the maps, even in Metroid Prime Remastered, and it's the same in Echoes, is that I can't tell what lift goes to where. I think it was more obvious in the first one. But like when you're riding lifts down, because like areas in Metroid Prime 1 would have multiple lifts, and they're like, yeah, this one will take you down to the lava place. And then I would look at the map on the lava place, I'm like, which one though? Like which area of the lava place am I going to? So there was a lot of issues with navigation and stuff like that in the first one, and there was still some in the second, not as much. But navigation aside, game was very fun to play. I like taking stuff out, blowing stuff up, and actually exploring the areas and trying to look for secrets and figuring out a way forward, because I spent a lot less time in Echoes Lost than I did in the first one. Granted, it was by the time I had to look for the Sky Temple keys, which was a point I didn't want to, but also I didn't want to spend forever on the game. So it's like, I'll just look up where some of them are, you know, so that I can know which, because I got like, I knew where a few were already, just by having seen them, because you can see them before you can collect them. And in some cases, you can collect them before you officially get to the Sky Temple key hunt, which probably would help mitigate the backtracking in the end. Like those one in the not the nest, in the last area, the big like laboratory looking area. I got the Sky Temple key there. It was the first one I ever got, and I didn't realize that's what I was picking up until I had it. And it's just fun, and I really enjoyed the bosses. I thought the bosses were great. It's my first actual introduction to Dark Samus, so that every single fight with Dark Samus was pretty cool. I think the only one I didn't like was the one that took place in this big like round elevator, once again in the like laboratory looking place, just because I couldn't figure out what I was screwing up when it came to how to hit her. I wasn't sure what to do, because there's like, she would be there and she'd jump in the air and start shooting lasers at you, then she would phase out, like disappear, and then reappear again. And through that whole loop that she did for the entire last phase of the fight, I didn't know when she was actually vulnerable. Like, I was able to hit her like once or twice and it would like move the health slightly, and then I just had to do that until she died, which is an issue that I noticed with a lot of bosses. I think not a lot. There are a few bosses in this game where I clearly wasn't sure what the actual method for hurting them was, and I was just getting by with scratch damage until they either moved to the next phase and it became obvious, or they died. I know the big insect you fight, I think at the end of the bog, was another one that gave me some problems like that. But beyond that, I enjoyed all the bosses. Had a lot of fun with the challenges. I thought the finale was great, even though I was really nervous, because once again I ran into that issue where I didn't know how to hit Dark Samus in her final phase. And that was timed, so I was like, uh-oh. But I figured that out pretty quick, and then it all went really well, and I beat the game, and it was like, cool. But yeah, Prime 2, good times. I'm glad to knock this one out as well. And so that just leaves 3, Corruption, to take out of the trilogy, which I haven't started yet. We're in October, and I have not, because I've been occupied with other stuff that I wanted to play and do, and distracted. But I will get to it, because I want to beat it before Prime 4. And then I also have Hunters on the Wii U. I don't know if I'll be able, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It'd be nice to get it all done before Prime 4 drops, but who knows? Who really knows? I did it for the 2Ds, but we don't know. But good times. Good times for Prime 2. And, oh yeah, I really like the, what are they called? The Lumina? I just thought they were cool. They're cool looking bugs, and they're really nice. I thought the ending was great too. Like, I've seen that moment in so many things, and I didn't even know that was from that game, where they all bow to Samus as she walks by, and she just gives them like the wave as she leaves, and then the game ends. It's like, I'm like, yep, that's pretty darn great. Okay, here we go. All right, this is one I really like. You can see I wrote a lot about this shit. All right, Dark Deity, a randomized replay. I finished on August 16th. Okay, so Dark Deity. Where do I start with this one? I was a big Fire Emblem fan. It started with Sacred Stones that a friend let me borrow, that I played for the first time, and I sucked at it. But after that, I played Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn. We played Sacred Stones. I played the Lineage with Hector game, then Roy's game, and then Mars remakes and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed the series. There's a lot about it that I love. And then when Awakening came out, it was this whole thing. And basically, following Awakening, Fates, everything that came up with that, I don't like the series anymore. I don't even consider myself a fan of the series anymore. And it sucks, because I love that style of gameplay. I love the turn-based strategy. And I can't find, like, I've tried to find other ones to replace it, and none of them just give me the same feeling as them. It's like, well, obviously I don't want to play like a straight ripoff, or like something that's just so copies it in a lot of ways. Because like Advance Wars is another one I love, but that's another Intelligent Systems thing. They refuse to revisit that series. Even with the reboot, they didn't do that. They handed that off to someone else because they didn't want to fucking do it. And which I liked Reboot Camp. I really enjoyed it. The ability to play Advance Wars 1 and 2, you know. And the thing with that is that like I got Wargroove because I thought that would be a good replacement for Advance Wars, because it looks like everything about it was styled after Advance Wars. It kind of is like a game to be kind of like that successor, almost like Bug Fables to Paper Mario. Whereas Bug Fables succeeded, I really didn't feel Wargroove did. Nothing about it was intuitive, was its issue. And I'm getting to Dark Deity. I would say it's the same with Dark Deity, actually, in terms of how it isn't intuitive. Like with Advance Wars, you know what to do when the enemy does something. Like they send out a tank, you know exactly what you need to use to counter that. Same with Fire Emblem. If you see what the enemies are holding, what kind of enemy they are, you know exactly what kind of character you has the best chance of dealing with them or surviving an attack from them. You can strategize that. I tried, I really did. I went back and started Wargroove from the beginning, from level 1, to try to remember and listen to what the characters are saying about what type of enemy is better than another one. And it just didn't, like, it just did not work for me. I couldn't understand who is better to what, because then that would make a unit that's useless, because it can't counter any of the enemy units. And it's like, even in like Advanced Wars, if you have a unit that generally shouldn't fight a certain one, it's still useful in other ways, or you can at least use it to block, but it never felt that extent from Wargroove. And Dark Deity, I'll talk about it now, has the same problem with its gameplay, where I still don't understand it. Because the characters, it's not about the weapons that they wield, it's about the type of weapon that it is. Whether it's smashing damage or slashing damage, I think. They have different terminology for the type of attack and the type of weapon that they're using, but it also takes into consideration the armor. And enemies have, and your characters have, like chain armor, leather armor, or this or that, right? And how those things interact with each other is never clear. It's never clear. I don't get it. And the game tries to alleviate this by having little arrows. So when you select a character to move, all the enemies in turn have either a green arrow or a red arrow. So I assume, I could be wrong, maybe that's why I sucked at the game so much, that the red arrows mean that your character will do poorly against fighting this thing. And the green arrows is like, you got it. You have the advantage, basically. Unreliable. There have been plenty of times where I would fight a red arrow guy because I would do more consistent damage to them, and then other times where I wouldn't, and the same with the green arrows. It's never clear. I don't know what the advantage is. Like, I send a guy to attack a green arrow, he's like, yeah, you'll deal 1 damage to this guy. And then I send the same guy to a red arrow dude, he's like, yeah, you'll deal 20 damage to this one. I'm like, why is it working like this? It's so weird, and it's such a big miss on this part. But okay, I think I got off track. But Dark Deity, when I saw it initially, this was not the first time I played the game, by the way. It's just I'm gonna get this all out now because I think the first time I beat it was like last year, year before. I just thought, oh cool, like a game made kind of in the spirit of Fire Emblem by other people, so maybe I can enjoy this as much as I enjoy Fire Emblem. And I want to, like, I want a new turn-based strategy game to enjoy, so I bought it when it came out and I played through it, and I did have fun with it. There are things I liked about it, but it had a lot of problems. And the unintuitiveness of the gameplay is one of them. But man, there's issues everywhere. So last video I talked about chained echoes and how I felt that some character designs were a bit weird in terms of how they meshed or didn't mesh with each other. This game is like, oh, it's like I don't think, and based off what I've seen online, I think maybe I'm right. I don't think this is like a big revelation. A lot of the sprite work for the characters in battle was done by different sprite artists. I've seen different ones post, oh, I did the attacks for this and this class, I did the attacks for this and this class. I think that applies to the art as well, and I don't think that was a good idea. Like, it might be a lot of work to put on one artist to have them design all the characters. Like, once again, I'm talking out my ass, maybe I'm wrong. Someone could look at this up and be like, no, they were all designed by the same person. They do not look like they were designed by the same person. Like, I could look at, like, Radiant Dawn and Sacred Stones, and I could be like, yeah, the entire cast, I could tell they had one single artist. Dark Deity, it did not feel like that. There's some character portraits that just looked way too off to the rest of the characters. And I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I think for being the main group, I think the primary squad here looks fine. Well, I say they're the primary squad. I wouldn't even count Elias, the blue-haired one, and Sia, all with the brown hair all the way on the side. I wouldn't count them as main characters, but that's another issue that the game has, which I'll get into. Basically, why did I replay this game? I honestly don't even remember. I think I just wanted to come back to it and try it again, just to see what it was like, or try to remind myself, like, I beat this game, I completed it. Did I like it? What were my problems with it, like, for real? And I think it's also because they announced a sequel sometime back, and so it has me curious as to what they could improve on for a theoretical sequel, or a real sequel that's coming out. I don't know when. And yeah, so I have it right there. So I wrote about the weapon and armor type damage being weird. The maps are another issue. I would always have this issue in Fire Emblem where I think I wish that the maps were bigger for some games, just so that the levels could last longer and I could have more fun, is how I interpreted it. Dark Deity's maps are all very big, and it just feels boring after, like, I don't know, 5 or 10 turns, because there's a lot of maps that are too big, and they require you moving your units way too much. Like, you move all your units to take out the enemies on one side, then you have to move them all the way somewhere else. And it's just like, it gets really boring when you just entire turns are passing. Like the freaking, I don't know what they were thinking with this, like the forest escape mission, where you have to move your entire army up a river, so everyone's stuck to moving 2 squares at a time. And I'm just like, this is not fun. Like, everyone's crawling, and it's like, only the people in the lead get to fight anything. I mean, you have this whole forest on the side you can navigate too, but it's so wide and long. The idea of moving everybody through that instead, it's like, that'll take just as long. It's like, there's no winning here. So, yeah. Oh, and the menus. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this game has a lot of problems. Yeah. And I think, but the thing about that is, that I like, is that I had all these criticisms for it that just became more pronounced when I played it again. And then I went onto the developers page, I went to the website, and I read every single, like, blog entry that they made about the development of the sequel. And every single thing that he said, that the writer has said, that the other people involved have said about how they're tackling Dark Deity 2, actually has me kind of hopeful, because they recognized a lot of the issues. And I mean, to be honest, it's kind of hard not to notice a bunch of these issues for this game. But they've noticed it, and they're trying to fix it. And like they've had, like, I think my favorite one's reading about the story, and then they realized the problem was, and also that's something that I think was also something that I like with the levels. Like, me thinking, I wish Fire Emblem levels were bigger, but they're the size that they are specifically for the reason that they're like that, and it's good that they hit that decent size, that they're not massive. It's the same with the story. This game's story, it has too many characters that comment actively on the events of the story, to the point that I think by the end of the game, Irving, the main guy in the red, just disappears, because you have the other political leaders and religious characters who have to comment, and secret society people who have to comment on the crazy stuff that's happening at the end of the game, that he doesn't really get a word in edgewise, even though he's like the chosen one or something like that. I don't really know what's going on there. They don't do a lot with him at all, really, or with any of his friends. It's like they get wrapped up into this war, jammed into it, and then they're just not allowed to comment a lot by the end of the game. And like Elias and Sia are early recruits, sure. I think they're some of the first ones you get when you start playing the game. But I would think that they would spend more time on the main guys, Irving, Garrick, Lincoln, but they don't, and it's like a missed opportunity, because the story is really kind of nonsense. If I'm being totally honest, I don't get it. I really don't understand the story. And reading what they thought about it, they're like, yeah, no, they make that acknowledgement that they screwed up in how they want to introduce this lore and introduce and handle the characters. And it's something that I always thought about Fire Emblem, that I wish more characters got to play bigger roles. Because you have your main cast, which is pretty tight, and there's a supporting cast, but then there's also everyone else in the army that you recruit across the game, and it's those characters, those extraneous characters, that a lot of people come to love, you know, like, depending on who it is. Mia, for example, just easy example, is one of my all-time favorite characters, and she's this mercenary you recruit early in Path of Radiance, and then she comes along with the Guerrilla Mercenaries in Radiant Dawn. I love her, but she contributes nothing to the story, as does the other like 30 recruits that you have in Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. She comes in, she has this talk with Ike, there's another talk with her after the mission, and then she gets some support conversations, like a base conversation. And then Radiant Dawn totally screws it up by only giving her a single base conversation, but Radiant Dawn screws everyone up by not having any support conversations. But that's why support conversations exist, is to help out the background characters and to let them do something. Like, let them build relationships so you can learn more about them that way. So they don't get to contribute to the main story, but there are these little nice things that you can get if you want to know more about the characters that you like. And Dark Deity tried to do the thing where it had everybody contribute to the story, but it was too much. And I was like, that's why they separate it. And it's like, it's such an obvious thing. It's like, of course they have to separate it. And it's like when you see what happens when they don't, it's like you understand why they do. I could talk about this game a lot. It's weird because I've played it all the way through, I think 4 times. This will be my 5th. And the cool thing about it, this is the randomized replay I mentioned. It has a randomizer in it, and you can change the order of the characters that you recruit. So what's funny about it though is the character models, the character artwork in the story gets replaced with who you're talking to, and so do the voice lines. So you can have Irvin and Garrick talking to each other, but it's actually Sia and Sloane, 2 female characters. So you have their, it's just fun. You have like female voices coming out of male characters, male voices coming out of female characters. It's just really funny to do that. Which I skipped the story. I was like, I'm not interested in having to read. I don't want to read all this again. I just wanted to play the game and see how the gameplay held up. And there are fun things about it. There's like cool looking classes, and sprite work is very cool for a lot of things. Even though some characters, their sprite arms are way too long, archers especially. But still, I think there's a lot of good. There's good in the game, despite I know a lot of problems. I think that the most important thing about it though is that I'm glad the developer has looked at it and they realized, yeah, we can do better. But also, like, to his credit, he got the game out. Like, it was a very small team that worked on this, and there are a lot of indie games that don't even get to release. So, I give them points for that. They got it out, and they're gonna work on a sequel. And my hope is that the sequel is just better in every single way, because then that would be awesome. I hope it is, because I'm a lot more hopeful for it after reading all the things that he said and seeing the things about the characters and everything like that. Although I will say once again, character designs. For the sequel, they've only shown off on older Irving and his kids, and Irving and his blood kids look great. His adopted son, this like elf with this weird, I don't know what to call it, just weird hair. It just doesn't look right. Like, is that really the design they wanted to go with? I would have changed that, but what can you do? Yeah, that's a lot. Game has some fun points, a lot of problems, but I played it, I beat it, I 100%ed it. Let's move on. Oh, same day. Oh gosh, this is probably gonna launch me into another. Okay, so same day, August 16th, I watched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always, the 30th anniversary special, featuring the return of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers as they face off against Rita. And stuff happens, and it's like this whole big thing. It's like the only Power Rangers thing I did want to see, because I felt like it would be a good thing to end my experience with the show on, rather than having to go and put myself through the torture of watching Dino Fury and Cosmic Fury and watching them completely ruin the impression of Q Ranger. And like I fell out of Power Rangers finally because I listened to what the people behind the scenes said. I forgot if I talked about this before, but just some behind the scenes interviews with like the showrunner, and just like the way he answers certain questions, or the way that they said specific things. I'm like, I think you hate this franchise. I don't know why you're working on it. But I mean, you can say that about a lot of things these days. I don't know. It's a whole thing. Who cares? But I at least wanted to watch this because it's like a capstone to everything, and it's Mighty Morphin again, and I'm sick of it. I don't care. Like, I don't want any more Mighty Morphin related things. We have Power Rangers have been around for 30 years. They have like 20 teams, over 20 teams, and yet they ignore all of them, and all they ever want to feature in anything is the Mighty Morphin Rangers. That's all they ever want to do. And I know people are gonna be like, well, yeah, that was Mighty Morphin was like the phenomena. They were extravagant. They were amazing back in the 90s. It was this thing that everybody cared about. After that ended, no one cared anymore. Zeo, In Space, Turbo, no one gave a shit, and it was all Mighty Morphin. I'm just like, I know that they're super popular. I know they'll probably always be the most popular, but come on. Like, there's 20 other seasons. Really? You don't want to give anyone a shot for anything? Of course they don't. But even despite all that, I still wanted to see at least this. And I wanted to watch it when it initially came out on Netflix, and then I didn't. So finally came into it, and the whole story it focuses primarily on Billy and Zach, the original Blue and Black Rangers, and has Trini's daughter, what's her name? Min. And it's all about Rita comes back, she kills Trini, and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers need to figure out how to defeat her. And there we go. And, Billy and Zach are the only ones of the original team that came back. Amy Jo Johnson, Kimberly chose not to come back. I think Austin St. John, Jason couldn't come back. And Jason David Frank, Tommy, also chose not to come back for this. And then, as we know, he passed away sometime after that. But he had already made the decision not to show up for this. So to fill in the spots of Pink and Red, they instead brought back Cat and Rocky. Obviously, they don't have anyone to replace Green. And yeah, I say here that I'm glad that in the end it did make me smile, and I did enjoy it, because it did feel like watching some classic Mighty Morphin, and it was really nice. And it was a really great way to honor how the franchise started, as well as Thuy Trang and Jason David Frank. The biggest issue with this special, unfortunately, is the character that I think you're supposed to... I don't know if you're supposed to root for, probably. Trini's daughter sucks. Like, she's the worst. And I really wanted to show this special to my sister, who's a huge Mighty Morphin fan. Well, I mean, I think that's the only season of Power Rangers she saw in full. I could be wrong. But she really liked it back in the day, when it originally aired. But after finishing it and seeing how horrible and just annoying and terrible Min is, I'm like, I don't think she'd be able to stomach it. I barely could, but I'm like, I need to finish this. And I like Billy, I like Zach. Rocky and Kat are okay. I'm like, my issue with Kat has nothing to do with her, though. But that's the same with my sister. We're both not too fond of Kat, but that's a totally different thing. But it's not fair to say that the one character can ruin everything, but she's really bad. And I think what makes it harder is how much my sister... I think Billy is, like, up there. I don't know if I would say Billy is her favorite, but he's definitely up there for her. And the fact that Min spends 90% of special shitting on Billy and saying the most offensive things she can to him, I'm like, yeah, this isn't gonna fly. So I'm just like, Min, you suck. Oh, and yes, I can't forget, just the reverence that they had for Zordon, definitely a really great thing. And how they bring him up and talk about their mentor as someone who was so important to them, Billy and Zach. And Billy and Zach carry this whole thing, and they're the best. Like, they had the most screen time. It's mostly about their dynamics and everything like that, and they do very well. They're doing very well. So I was really happy with that. And how it references all the other seasons a little bit here and there, and just how it makes sure that you know that this takes place in a world where they have since acknowledged that the other teams do exist. Now, whether it's mentioning Aquitar or showing the little cameos of the other locations where the other Rangers were based, like Mariner Bay and stuff like that, it's nice. Of course, none of them appear. And Adam and Aisha, the other Mighty Morphin Rangers who were missing, were also in this for a little bit, under the guise of Space Patrol Alpha. They even mentioned that they're fighting the Truvians in the middle of the special. I could probably go like for 10 minutes why I don't think that makes any sense, but whatever. I don't think it matters anymore. The franchise is done, so who knows. I guess ultimately it's fun. It was nice, and after completing it, I was like, yeah, you know what, that was nice. Like, that was nice. Thanks, Power Rangers. You know, like, it's something that I watched when I was really young, the original Mighty Morphin, and some of the other seasons scattered here and there. I remember I was really into Lost Galaxy, and years later I came back to the show with SPD, And then I went back and watched almost every single season after that, and I had a lot of fun. So I have good memories of the whole franchise, and I'm not going to let them be tainted by what the people did with it now at Hasbro. I'm just going to enjoy the memories that I had for, like, I don't know, the 20 years of this fucking franchise. I don't even know. But there's a lot of good points, and it was fun. And I know people complained about, like, the CGI Zord at the end. I didn't really mind. I thought it was super cool how they remade the original Zord summoning sequence in CG. It looked cool. I love it. So, you know, I loved it. Good times. Alright, and speaking of SPD, that was the other thing that I finished watching SPD on my birthday, August 19th. And actually, give me a second again. Got the thing here. Just like with Oban and just like with Kamen Rider Kuga, it's nice to have some physical media of stuff that I love, and SPD is one of them. Was this Shout also? Yes, it is. And they have a lot of complete series DVDs or Blu-rays. This is DVD for a bunch of Power Ranger seasons. I'm still curious as to why they chose to make the background pink. I would have went red, or maybe blue. Pink's weird. I don't know. I'm just kind of curious why they did that. SPD is one of my all-time favorite seasons. It's the one I've definitely seen the most. I think I've seen it from start to finish 6 or 7 times. Who knows? Probably 8 now that I've seen it again. It's still fantastic. It's still so much fun. Like, it's great. It has a great team. Jack, Sky, Bridge, Sid, Z, Kruger, Cat, Boom. It's got a great cast. Grum, Brewing. What's her name? The little girl. I'm getting confused. Mora. Yeah, Mora and Morgana. Great stuff. Piggy, he's funny. Like, they got a great cast all around that really does well in this show. Grum has, like, really cool design for, like, an original. They always nailed it with, like, the original American villains and their designs. I think Mesogog was another very good example of awesome design for a villain. Grum looks great. Back in the day, Zed, of course, always an awesome design. And then we get, you know, the modern day ones like Sledge, which he looks cheap is the thing. Like, I don't think he's bad. It just looks so off. But SPD is just so much fun. Like, it's so enjoyable. I had a good time watching it. I mean, it's been a while since I've consumed, like, English media. It's the same with the Mighty Morphin special, because I watched so much Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, and I've been watching Bang Dream all year long. So it's just like I watched so much of that it's weird to come into a show and just hear everyone talking in a language I can understand. And so it's amusing. But I really enjoyed this show the whole way through, and it's fun listening to, like, I've seen some things of the cast now, or like some members of the cast in different things talk. I saw, because recently Deca Ranger had, I think, its 20th anniversary, and they released a special, which they've done for some Sentais, where they have an anniversary special where they bring the cast back and they have, like, just a new adventure continuing their story. And someone shared a clip of it on Twitter, and he said, man, I really wish we had a reunion too. And I'm like, you know what? It would be cool if, as Power Rangers fans, we got to see SPD have a reunion of some kind. Don't know if it ever happened. And I replied to the comment like, yeah, that'd be so awesome. It was always fun. And I didn't realize at the time that the person who made that post talking about wanting a reunion, I thought it was just a fan. Because fans, I think, would love reunion shows of their favorite seasons, right? No, it was Matt Austin, Bridge, who made that comment about how he wished that they would bring back the SPD cast and do, like, an SPD reunion. And when I realized it was him, I was like, oh, this is silly of me. And I of course, had to edit my comment, because you can't edit your comment on Twitter. But, because I know I told him that he's, like, my favorite. Because he's just great. Bridge is really funny. So much so they brought him back for Once a Ranger as the Red SPD Ranger, which is always cool. I don't think we'll ever get that reunion though, but man, I wish. Just a really great cast. It's like a really fun show to watch. Man, it's like there's certain characters in it that you'll see, like Boom. Kelson Henderson is in so many seasons. John Tui Kruger would go on to play Daggeron in Mystic Force, and then Grum, Rene now I don't know how to say his name, but he goes on to play Mentor G in Samurai, which I thought was pretty awesome when I learned that, and I didn't even realize it wasn't until years later when I had seen Samurai, and I was like, oh, the same guy who played Grum, that's cool. And then I went back and watched SPD after that, and there's that episode where Grum goes to Earth and he takes on human disguise, and it's his actor. It's actually Renee playing the human version of Grum. And I was like, oh, that's him! That's Mentor G! And it's so funny because I didn't realize that the first time around. Yeah, just, it's good. It's really cool. Yeah, I saw a cool, like, at some convention where, Jack, Brandon J. McLaren was with his Japanese counterpart, I believe it was, and they were just doing some, like, I was fun listening to them talk about their experience on the show and shooting with the dog and doing the transformation poses together. It's just awesome shit. It's so cool. SPD's good, man. This is a fun time. The semifinal episode of the show was jam-packed. Like, when it finished, like, I was like, wow, there's like so much stuff happens in that episode. It almost feels like 2 episodes in one. It's crazy. It's crazy how busy it gets. Just kind of wish that they gave that Sam wasn't a ball of light, the Omega Ranger, but you know, money is always a problem. And last thing of the month, RoboCop Rogue City. I saw people talking about it. It was mainly Mahler. I saw him tweet about it. It's someone I watch on YouTube a lot, listen to his stuff, and he randomly made some tweets talking about how much he was enjoying the game, and I was like, huh, because I heard about it vaguely, and I was like, did that do good? Like a licensed game about a RoboCop, is it actually good? And he was talking about how good it was, and I was like, huh. And then I watched, who was it? Fleekazoid, I think it is, review it, because I think someone mentioned that his review of it was really good, or like really funny, or like really entertaining. I don't remember what the word he used is, but I watched it and it was hilarious and it convinced me to get the game. But at the time, I just put it on my wish list. I was like, I'll pick it up later. And then come my birthday, sister was like, I'm gonna get you a Steam game, pick one. And so I'm like, do RoboCop, and I had a blast with it. It was super fun. I did mention poor optimization. Maybe it was just me, but when I booted the game up, I had to drop the settings a few times because it was really, the frame rate wasn't great with how it was moving. It was like too slow, too sluggish, and it crashed a lot for me. Like, I think I had to turn off hardware acceleration or something whenever I was playing the game so it could not crash. Still, even with those issues, it's so much fun. It's such a simple, cool game, and it had been a long time since I've seen any RoboCop. I honestly, at the time, I don't remember if I've even actually seen like the first 2 in full. I know for a fact that I've seen a majority, if not all, of the third one. That was the one I've seen the most. I know people are like, what? And I'm like, really? Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the one I saw the most of the entire series. Oh, I watched the reboot, I remember. Yeah. I don't get why people don't like that. Like, the only part about that I actually thought was, I just liked hearing the Murphy quote, you know, the Dead or Alive, you're coming with me. But like, obviously, the rest of the movie was whatever. But it was fun. It was just a really fun game, and I completed it on the 27th, so like 2 days after finishing it, which, yeah, it wasn't bad at all. It was really easy to complete. So if you want an easy game to have a good, fun, like 10-15 hours with, I don't know. If you want to do the side stuff, because the side stuff's enjoyable. It's just fun going around town, giving people parking tickets, handling, solving murders and stuff like that. It's fun. It's a good game. It's a good game with a RoboCop in it, and it's like, man, by the end of the game, when you're fully kitted out, like with all your upgrades and stuff, you just walk through people and it just feels great. It really does feel awesome. So yeah, that was a great way to end the month. It's a really fun game. Like, I wouldn't mind booting it up and playing through it again, like at some point in the future, but that optimization is gonna kill me. So I don't know. I think it's available on the console. Maybe it's more stable on the console. I don't know. But fun times. Very, very fun game. And yeah, that brings us to the end of August, and then into September for the next one. I had a good time. I spent a lot of... Wow, this episode came out long. It's probably because I had to talk so much about Dark Deity, but I mean, it's not an easy thing to sum up. Complicated. Whereas all the other stuff is a lot easier. Still, man, this year's almost over, isn't it? Not a lot of time to finish more stuff. Say October has not been super busy, but yeah, so we're barely a week into it, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's all for today. Thanks everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time. Till then, hasta.